All right, let's get people angry, why don't we? Let's do the 7 most overrated quarterbacks in football. I just want to preface all of this because, no one likes it when their favorite quarterback is on this list. Doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad quarterback to be overrated. And the mindset, the way you should view it when you hear me say this is, what? They're not overrated. What are you talking about? You're crazy. And then after you kind of hear me talk about it a little bit longer, you say, okay, I see your point. We'll see if you're right or wrong in future years. Because if I say a quarterback, like, for example, Daniel Jones, I didn't put him on the list because I don't think he's overrated. I think people properly rate who Daniel Jones is. Like, so why would I put him on the list? That doesn't feel right for me. Like, maybe overrated by his own contract standards, but other than that, I think that most people rate him properly, so I didn't put him on the list. It's guys who I'm predicting that you will think is a better player than I think, which is why you make the list. So that's how I view it. Without further ado, let's just get into the list. Number 7, I'm going Brock Purdy, who I've actually kind of defended a lot too, but I do feel like, especially in some of those playoff games, you saw him get a lot of hype for being able to make relatively simple throws, which, I think a lot of his value is that he can make the simple throws. And again, I don't think he's an invaluable player. I would have him be the starter for San Francisco if I'm making that call, because I did like what I saw from him. But, it is the Shanahan scheme to some degree propping him up. So there's value in the Brock Purdy for sure. I like him as a player, but I do think there's a subsect of the fan base, the NFL fan base, that's getting very excited about Brock Purdy. And I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit on that. But I do think that the majority of people actually do agree with what I say, that which is why he's only number 7 on the list. That he's a player who showed some promise, and we'll see what he does, year 2. So yeah, that's why he's on the list. Number 6 is Garoppolo, who's basically here for the exact same reason that Purdy was. The Shanahan scheme caused his numbers to be very good, and I do think that there's the quarterback wins crowd is definitely going to champion Garoppolo to some degree. Again, not a bad quarterback, and there's probably some areas of the internet you could look at that underrate Garoppolo a little bit. There's things he does nicely, but I definitely do think that there's, again, lower on the list because of this, but I think there's a group of people that look at his stats and will maybe hype him up more than he deserves. Can't look at just box score stats. Other things have to go into it. So he's number 6. Number 5, this might be where some people start to get frustrated. Trevor Lawrence I have on this list. Trevor Lawrence absolutely showed flashes of being a very good quarterback last year. Trevor Lawrence has not shown MVP caliber flashes or top 5, or I shouldn't say flashes because he has shown flashes of that, but he hasn't shown to be an MVP caliber quarterback consistently or a top 5 quarterback consistently. He's been very inconsistent, which you expect. Again, my whole thing about Trevor Lawrence is that he's absolutely on the path you would want him to be on if you're a Jaguars fan. He's looking like he's going to be a superstar elite quarterback, and he's checked every single box. But that doesn't mean you're going to be a MVP caliber quarterback in this next season, which it feels like a lot of people are expecting of him. I believe he was tied for 7th highest MVP odds heading into this season. I think maybe even a little higher. The hype's gotten a bit much for Lawrence. So I'm not saying he's bad, and I'm projecting that he will eventually live up to the hype. But just because I think you'll live up to the hype doesn't mean you're at that hype yet, right? There still has to be a bit of patience there, which I feel like people are, people get so excited for the next big thing, they're willing to say he's the next big. He already is the next big thing. It's no, he's the next big thing. He's not the big thing just yet. I think, but maybe he'll be the big thing next year. But as of right now, not so sure, so I have him on the list. Number 4, I do put Justin Fields on the list, and he's a tough guy with this, because I do think there's some people that massively underrate Justin Fields and sort of say, oh, well, he can't throw the football. I don't know. The situation was tough around him last year, and also, he doesn't have to be a superstar at throwing the football. He doesn't have to be Peyton Manning, because he's an incredible runner of the football, and the way that he does that opens up the passing game. That being said, I still have yet to see him, be able to, in a tough situation, succeed. That's just, or even in a, mediocre situation against a mediocre defense who's just, taking away the running ability. That's really where he struggled, and he hasn't been able to succeed in those spots just yet. So I think he could. I think there's the possibility of that. But again, Fields, I believe Dan Orlovsky gave him, said that he should be an MVP candidate last year. The hype got out of control last season. I think it's come down to earth a bit in this offseason. But, no, similar to Lawrence in that definitely on the pathway you want to see him on, but he has to continue to develop before I'm willing to say he's an MVP caliber player. Number 3 is Matt Stafford for me. Stafford is someone who I really like as a quarterback. Again, has that, again, I like all these players. I like everyone on this list. But Stafford is someone who definitely, he won a Super Bowl, so he has that going for him. But I did feel like him in that playoff run was not typical Matt Stafford. The whole thing about Stafford is that he's just incredibly inconsistent. And if he was always on his best day, he would be that elite quarterback situation. I don't think he's quite that guy. I think that he's still a top 10 quarterback in the NFL to me. I like him that way, but that's kind of how I've always viewed him, is that sort of tier 2 level quarterback. I think that's how most people view him, but there's definitely a chunk of people that have viewed him as the tier 1 quarterback of he's been as good as Aaron Rodgers. He just never had a team around him, and I don't know if that's entirely true. He was in tough situations, and that kind of hurt him, but I think that there's, I think he's a very good quarterback, but I think that there's a group of people who overrate him, so that's why I have him at number 3, but still, still a very good quarterback. Number 2 is Dak Prescott, who, again, similar to Stafford and the inconsistency stuff, you catch either of those guys on their best day, they look like they're a superstar, so that's probably why some people overrate them. If you only see a few games of Prescott a year, and he looked great in those games, then you'll say he's, a superstar, but he's not. He's had very, low lows along with high highs, and it feels like the narrative on him has kind of come down to earth a little bit as well, but it does still seem like every single year there's a ton of MVP buzz for Prescott. Could this be the year that he, wins MVP? Which, he's just not really that caliber of player, which is fine. That's just not who Prescott is. And again, I do wonder to some degree how much of that is just Cowboys preseason hype always goes crazy, and so because of the the Cowboys hype, some of that's going to carry over with the Dak Prescott hype for sure. But at the same time, Prescott is someone who again, a solid quarterback, that tier 2, maybe even tier 3 caliber of quarterback who can do a lot of nice things, but I don't know if I would sit here and call him really have any business being an MVP conversation given what we've seen so far, because again, anyone could get better on any given day and on any given season, but for now, that's how I view Prescott. And number 1, I am going with Jared Goff, who I think we know who Jared Goff is, and this is why I get very confused by certain people who really hype up Goff a lot, is I feel like we know who Goff is. Goff is that player who, in a good situation, looks very good and can run an offense that can be a very good offense, but he does need to be in kind of a perfect situation to succeed. He's not someone who in an okay situation is still going to have a great offense, and in fact, in tough situations, he kind of will maximize the issues. He is someone who on one hand has made a Super Bowl, but on the other hand, he was a big reason they lost that Super Bowl, and also that was when he was on his rookie deal, which is a little bit different. I do think that, again, I think the box score stats were very good last year. I think that kind of helps Jared Goff. His advanced stats were not as good at all last year. Not to say they were bad or anything. He's a good quarterback. He's a solid, mediocre starting quarterback, right? The 16th best quarterback. That feels like Jared Goff to me. That's kind of how I've always felt like he is. I think last year the situation was very good. The Lions found a way to maximize his value, and things went well, and hey, there is plenty of value in a Jared Goff, but would I take Jared Goff over, I don't know, some of these other, still very good, over Matt Stafford, who's still on this list? No, I wouldn't. I would still take Matt Stafford today over Jared Goff. That's kind of how I view it. So, yeah, those are my 7. This is going to be a very disliked video. I already know. That's just how these things go. But, hopefully it's a very fun video for you to watch. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Again, I don't hate any of these quarterbacks. Just my opinion on my goal here is when you hear me say one of these names to say, what? No, that guy's not overrated. He's great. And then you hear me what I say and you say, okay, maybe I see your point. Hopefully I've done that for at least some of you. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.